In my last video, I talked about the 4% rule. And I talked about how the 4% rule is a rule of thumb that can be used to help you determine how much you can spend in retirement without running out of money. But I said I want to talk about some of the pros and cons that you should consider if you're thinking about following the 4% rule. And so that's what I want to talk about today. Now, on the positive side, the 4% rule is a good guide. It gives you an idea of the starting amount of income that you can take from your portfolio. And if you need more than that, it lets you know that you should look at your situation more closely to ensure that you're not going to run out of money later in life. And if you actually need to take less than 4% from your portfolio, then it lets you know that maybe you have some opportunity for some other planning, and you can take a look at that as well. Maybe you can spend more or leave more or do more, some of the things that are on your bucket list. And so that allows you to put together a good plan. And having a plan is the key to having a secure retirement. But what are some of the potential pitfalls to following the 4% rule? I want to talk about 5 things today. So number 1 is that it is very rigid. The 4% rule assumes that you will always spend that amount of money that you started with adjusted for inflation, no matter what has happened with the market or what might have happened in your real life. It doesn't account for the 3 phases of retirement that I talked about a couple of videos ago. And it doesn't account for spending needs that might come up during your retirement. It's just 4% in the first year adjusted for inflation. Number 2 is it uses a very specific portfolio, 50% in stocks and 50% in bonds, and it maintains that portfolio over the whole retirement. And the portion that is in bonds is invested in intermediate term government bonds. At least that's what the study was based on. Well, your portfolio may be much, much different than that. In fact, there are a lot of different asset classes that can be included in your portfolio to create a better level of diversification. And you may want to change your portfolio over time to better match the phase of life, the point of life that you're at, and the level of risk that you want at that point in time. Number 3, it is based on historical rates. And those historical rates are from an entirely different time period. They're from 1926 to 1976 and going forward for the next 30 years. I'm recording this at the end of 2022, and the stock market is down. Bonds are down because rates have been increasing. This is the first time we've had rates increasing like this in a very long time. And as we're heading into 2023, there's the potential for a recession, and the Fed is going to continue to increase rates. So from where we're at right now, the next 10 years appear to be set up for a lower rate of return than that historical time period. And so using a starting withdrawal based on those historical rates may actually set you up for taking too much in the first year at this point in time. So that is a drawback and something that you have to address and think about. Number 4, it uses a 30-year time period. And 30 years may be a good number of years for your retirement, but it could be too short or it could be too long. It depends on at what age are you going to retire? What is your expected longevity based on the longevity in your family? And how do you account for potential medical advances so that you possibly could even live longer than your parents or your grandparents have lived? And so you need to think about the time frame that's appropriate for you. And finally, it doesn't include anything for taxes and fees. There's no analysis of the taxes that are paid or the fees that are paid. And your taxes and fees could be entirely different than someone else's taxes and fees. If you have mainly tax deferred accounts where you have not paid any taxes yet, you're going to have a higher amount of taxes to pay than another person that has mainly after-tax accounts, taxable accounts, other types of investments that have already had the tax paid on them. that person would have lower taxes to pay. And so how much you get to keep of that 4% would be entirely different than how much someone else gets to keep of that 4%. And that may mean that if you have a higher taxes, you may actually need more than 4% to allow you to pay the taxes and cover your lifestyle. That is another consideration that has to be made. And so those are 5 potential pitfalls to think about as you're considering following the 4% rule. The 4% rule is a very simple rule, and in real life, there is more to it than that. And so that's what I want to talk about in the next video. Be sure and subscribe so you don't miss that. It's going to be a good one. And look forward to sharing with you some more insights, because I'm here to help you be on your best path for retirement.